welcome to the 3 o'clock presentation. This 3 o'clock presentation is done by Eszter Chrobacsinszky from Mensa, Hungary. You can reintroduce yourself with your correct pronunciation. This particular workshop is called a Mensa Volunteers Timeline. And so I would like Eszter to come up here and begin. Before I leave the podium here, though, I'd like to let you know that there's a green evaluation sheet I would like each person who's here to fill out. This evaluation sheet helps Eszter refine her presentation or answer some questions, because she's going to be doing this very similar presentation at another event in September. And also, please sign in if you haven't already. Okay, Eszter, all yours.
Thank you, Alyssa, and thanks for coming, everyone. I'm really glad to be here and to give you this presentation. I'm in a slightly harder situation than Alexandra was, because I already seen her presentation and it was really of high quality, and I will try to live up to that standard. Well, my name is Eszter Chrobacsinszky, and it's hard to pronounce even for Hungarians, so I don't blame Alyssa for mispronouncing it. I'm from Mensa, Hungary. That's me being really happy because I can be here, so I'm in the program. I joined Mensa 7 years ago, and I have always done some kind of volunteering. I have served on the board as testing coordinator. I've been on the disciplinary or supervisory committee, and right now I'm foreign relations appointee, and I also take care of the Facebook page of Mensa Hungary. What I would like to talk about today is a journey you might have taken, or at least started yourself. It's the journey from a candidate to Mensa member, then to volunteer, and finally to a Mensa leader. So, well, my personal philosophy is that people are good, so that we all have good intentions, we all want to do good things. Another thing is that people are bad. By this I mean that there is this human nature which is sometimes selfish, sometimes awkward. We all have our different problems, and Mensans sometimes have more problems than others. And so this is what makes it difficult sometimes to really achieve something in Mensa, but still we try. Well, so let's start this journey. I use the Facebook analogy because I think that Mensa can be compared to Facebook in a way that, at least for my generation, internet and social media is like the air. It surrounds us, it's everywhere. And I think that at least for Mensa members or potential Mensa members, Mensa should be such an air. So it should be all around us. It should be our life, basically. So it starts when a member, a potential member, signs up for Facebook or for Mensa. But that doesn't happen by itself, because first of all, people have to learn about the existence of Mensa in order to be able to join. And the problem is that when we hear the word Mensa, I don't know how it's in the US, but in Hungary and in other countries in Europe, the word Mensa refers to a school canteen, which is kind of awkward as regards image, but still. And I would like to ask you, what is Mensa for you? What do you answer to the question when they ask you, what is Mensa? What is the organization you belong to? Does anybody have an idea or definition? Yeah? John?
The way I put it is it's a bunch of smart people get together and try and do things that help people and are fun.
That's great. That's a great way of putting it, because it's not boasting our extremely high intelligence. My problem is that when I'm trying to define Mensa, I either have to say that the official definition, like the association of the top 2%, and everybody will say, oh, you're a brainiac, oh, you're a freak, oh, you're snobbish, etc. Or I just say some general thing like, very interesting people I enjoy talking to, or I say just a bunch of crazy friends, which is more or less the truth. But this will not build the image of Mensa. So I think we should find another option. But what John said is actually excellent. And the other question that people raise very often, that, okay, we have this Mensa thing, yet once you have these intelligent people, what do you do with them? And the answer to that is just about anything. Just a few examples of activities that we do. like hiking, movies, reading, even walking fire. We've done that a few times in Mensa, Hungary. The problem is that, like on Facebook, if you have all sorts of interests, then people don't really get who you are and what you like. So if we claim to do everything, we will not stand out. We will not be like an outstanding brand. I come from a marketing background. I graduated with a major, in American terms, in advertising. And we use quite often the conception of USP, or unique selling proposition. And I think that for Mensa, it should have a slightly different meaning. I've given 3 different meanings to this acronym. The first is something you seek persistently. Mensa should be the first thing that comes up in people's mind if they are looking for good company, for intelligent people. And I think we should also have USP for those people who would not qualify for Mensa. That is something you shall pay for. One of the definitions of intelligence is problem solving, an ability to solve problems. So we have basically tens of thousands of certified problem solvers, and we could capitalize on that. And the third thing is that Mensa should be something people want to participate in. It should be endless fun. Like I said, we have these numerous activities, culture, sports, and social, all kinds of activities. So that is the 3 things that Mensa should propose to basically the whole of society, to members and non-members alike. And now, in marketing, once you've defined yourself, you have to define your targets. Who do you want to reach out to? And I circled this number because now we are getting members who were born in the 90s. Oh my gosh, where did people even born in the 90s? Apparently, people were born in the 90s, and they are trying to search their place in life, and they might find it in Mensa. And a typical Mensan would be, by the statistics, it would be male, due to statistical genetic reasons. And there is this age profile I mentioned, so there are young people we have to reach out to. And there's this thing about language. I'm aware that the majority of Mensa members are native English speakers, but we have a large Mensa in Germany, and if the Chinese Mensa really takes off, then they will have more members than anyone else. And there are some unfortunate groups like Hungary, where we speak Hungarian. So even if we use English in these global gatherings, we should take into account that many Mensas do not use this language, and we should adjust our communication accordingly. And one of the problems in recruiting members is that they have only one thing in common, an extremely high IQ. This doesn't mean that they get along with people better, or they are more successful in life, or that they know the answers to all those questions. It doesn't mean anything. It's just the high IQ, and we have to build a community out of these people. So, like Facebook, Mensa should be a network. And actually, Facebook has started taking care of new members. It just keeps nagging them about joining networks and adding friends and stuff. And we should do that in Mensa. And actually, in Mensa Hungary, we do quite a lot of things like that. Like friend request, it can be compared to the newbie mentors. In Hungary, we have 2 people, a young couple, they're very nice, and they receive the list of new members each month, and they send them a letter and invite them to a special meeting, especially for them. And so they introduce the new members to each other and to older members, and this helps them integrate into Mensa and makes them less afraid of actually going to a gathering.
Can I stop for a question?
Yeah, sure.
So is your group centered mostly, because you have a national group.
Yeah.
We have local groups that are centered around cities. So is your group centered around Budapest?
Yeah, it's mostly centered around Budapest. We have local groups, but they are unfortunately not very active. We're trying to do something about that, but these newbie mentors, they are based in Budapest, so they mostly reach out to members who are Budapest based. Unfortunately, Hungary is it's actually smaller than a local group here in the States. And still, it's a country, still we perceive it as a big distance between Budapest and the local groups. So it's kind of hard to reach out to everybody.
How big is, like in square miles, when you compare it to a state the United States. Do you have an idea how many square miles Hungary is?
Well, a nice guy just calculated this for me, about 36,000 square miles. So it's smaller than the state of Nevada, I guess. And there are bigger states than Nevada, so it's really small.
So we're similar. Well, in Minnesota, we have one big city, and then everybody else is spread over about 80,000 square miles, twice as big. So I understand your point.
Yeah, so that is it. Okay, and the second thing is communication. We have the Mensa magazine, we also have a newsletter, and we have different mailing lists. Some people like this discussion type mailing list where there are lots of letters about every topic, and they're sometimes controversial, sometimes even rude. So many people are not subscribed to that. But we have an information mailing list which is moderated by a moderator, and so only messages about events, about discounts, about relevant things get through moderation. So we can get through information to everyone. And the third thing is event invitations. We've started using Facebook actively this year, and we also have a blog, and we have a website where we have polls regularly and forums, although that is not much used. So we all have these different channels through which we are trying to communicate with our members. But we must make sure that all this communication doesn't culminate in over-satiation, so the person should not feel that he made a mistake when he joined Mensa. But obviously there are people who are hard to satisfy. There are people who are always complaining about something. What we tell them in Mensa Hungary is that if you don't like it, then make it right, make it better. And basically that's the step it takes to become from a mere member to volunteer. So those who accept the challenge, they start things. They organize an event, or they create a group, or even they just start writing into the Mensa magazine. Actually, that's a kind of volunteering, and it's very much appreciated. And I was thinking about ways of motivating people to become volunteers. Volunteering for Mensa basically takes a mental octopus. You have to take care of many different tasks, communicate with many people. And this idea came to my mind that we should use the thing called gamification. Alexandra mentioned this in her presentation. It's basically about giving points and virtual rewards to people who volunteer. But there are sites, one of them is called Fitocracy. I don't know if you know it, but you get points for doing exercise. And then you can compare your scores against your friends, and you can skip levels, and then you can win awards. But it's all virtual, but it clearly motivates people. And I know doctors who encourage their patients to subscribe because it's good for their health. So it clearly works. Like, we can share, it's a very important element to share achievements. So I was thinking about maybe an application where you can enter that you volunteer for Mensa, and then you can share it, and so everybody can see. The second thing is that volunteers should work for Mensa on a permanent basis. So we should make them loyal. And one way to do this is the accumulation of points and the rewards that are related to it. There are a few ways we can motivate people. The yellow row is for people who volunteer, who reach a certain level. We discussed this at Alexander's presentation again, that we should treat volunteers kind of equally. So if somebody has volunteered to a certain extent, then he should qualify as a volunteer. So we should not make a distinction between whether he volunteered for 50 hours or for 5 hours, because it would overcomplicate things. So for volunteers, we could reduce the registration fee for an event, or we could give them a discount on merchandise, on Mensa boutique products, or we could give them support to travel to international events. For Hungarians, going to international gatherings is often a question of money, and if we can support them in some way, it's a great added value. It's really appreciated by members. For example, last year at the IBD, there was a site coordinators meeting. Alexander was also there, and I was also there because I was substituting our site coordinator. And it was a great event, and I think it gave a boost to this site process. And I was thinking that maybe we could do that, and each year it would be a different position. Sometimes it would be membership officers, sometimes it could be webmasters, sometimes site coordinators. I know IBD is a bit reluctant to do that because it costs a lot of money, but maybe we could find a way to reward our volunteers in this way. Well, another thing I was thinking of, and I mentioned this at Alexander's presentation, that members could give these services to volunteers. For example, we have a member in Hungary who is a pilot. He flies she flies little planes, like cruise planes, I don't know what they're called, but so these. And she's happy to give members rides. So this could be a great reward for some people, and I'm sure we can think of many different things members can offer for almost no cost, and it would be a great recognition for volunteers. And the last thing I was thinking of is that we have a discount card. It's called EDC. I don't know if you know it, if you have something like that. It's independent from Mensa. It's another company, and it has partnerships with Burger King and different shops and retail chains. And so they give people a discount. And Mensa members can get this card for free, and they can get like 20% discount at certain shops. And I think it could be arranged that volunteers get a slightly higher discount, so we could just recognize them in this additional way. Yeah, and another thing is that at our annual gatherings we often have group contests. Like, people are divided into groups. There are all kinds of activities all through the gathering. And at the end, we add up the points, and there's a winner team who gets something. And we often motivate the teams to incorporate new members by giving extra points to the teams which have new members in them. And we could do the same with volunteers. So, like the guy with the little yellow halo above his head is the volunteer, and so he gets an advantage at this contest. And the third motivation is this very program. Leadership has been so rewarding to me so far. And I took this example from my Facebook page. Like, friends, I have many friends, but this is a random sample Facebook puts on your timeline. And half of these people are Mensans, and one of them is an international member I met at the gathering. And it's just great to make these new friends all around the world. Second thing, it's not the photos actually, but the experience which is behind them. It's I don't think I would have ever come to Reno without this gathering, so it's really great. And of course the travels are incredibly good, and as I mentioned, for Hungarians it's often hard to travel to so far, and so it's great that I could come here, and so travel is a great thing. Yeah, and there are these gatherings which I think are also excellent, that they bring together Mensas from a region, because they often have the same problems, often they have different problems, but at least they have the same or similar cultural background, and they can help each other this way. And if you become a Mensa leader, the time comes to collect likes when you want to win an election. And I have some thoughts, concepts about Mensa elections. I think democracy is our enemy sometimes in Mensa. On one hand, because many people choose on the basis of sympathy or on the basis of the name I know, and not based on competence or professionalism. But also because we have freedom of speech, which is in case the freedom of whining. And I'm sure you've had the same experience, that people who do not actively volunteer complain and criticize so much that the actual active volunteers are discouraged from volunteering. And I don't think we can do anything about that. We just have to live with it. And the question of appointees. Like, there are several positions in each national Mensa which are not elected officers but appointed by the board on the basis of expertise or on the basis that one member of the board knows that person, knows that he or she is good. He might not be the only one who could do the job, but he or she is the one the board knows. And that sometimes leads to the criticism that they are friends of the board, and so this is kind of it's a kind of privileged person who gets this position. But actually, it's nothing to be jealous of because it's hard work to be in an appointed position. Just ordinary members or this critic sometimes feel that being an officer is something extra. It's like a privilege, really, and that there's power associated to it. But this is not necessarily the case. And there's another question about elections. Should people run individually or as a group, as an entire board? We've had both systems in Mensa Hungary, and nowadays we have individual elections, but of course people can group together and say in their introduction that they want to be together with that and that and that person. And these groups stand a higher chance than individual candidates, even if the individual candidates are better. So I think that's a question a national Mensa should decide. They should even run individually or in a group, but this mixed thing might lead to not the most competent person in charge. And as I mentioned, there's the sympathy versus professionalism question, which also has to be treated. And so we have come to the point where our member has become a volunteer, has become a leader, and there's this cycle that leaders must recruit new members, new volunteers, and the next generation of leaders. So how this can be done? I have the perception that some chairmen focus on quantity, on membership numbers, whilst others focus on quality, as to what to do with the existing members. I think there needs to be a balance. So either chairman should focus on both aspects, or there should be an alternation of chair people, like one increases the membership number and then the other focuses more on events and on motivating people to be active volunteers. And I think it's really important that leaders should have a volunteer past. And what, again, Alexander said, it was a great idea that leaders or people who run for elections should state the number of hours they volunteered or the points they have gathered, because this gives an idea to people about the efforts they put into Mensa. And it's important that leaders know what volunteering takes and how they can best support future volunteers. And another thing, I think that a good Mensa leader is provocative. So he's not necessarily a nice, likable person, because for the outside world, a chairman is the face of Mensa. And if they remember the person, if he was thought-provoking and he gave interesting ideas, then they will remember him or her more than if he was just nice and said a few words about Mensa and smiled to the camera. So I have a few ideas as to what tools we can use to boost this cycle and to make more people volunteer and become leaders. First of all, use what we already have. There are these icons, I'm sure everybody knows them, so we should use these new communication channels. But we should also use, you might know, this is a page from Couchsurfing. I don't know if you know it, but this is a page which was created by a Mensa member, and he used Site as a model. And while Site is kind of a small-scale thing, Couchsurfing is thriving. Tens of thousands of people use it every day. They search for accommodation, or they search for people in different countries, different cities who will help them get by. And there are also events organized within each person's own city. And as you can see, there are Mensa groups on Couchsurfing. So Mensa members are trying to get together in every possible way, even on sites which are not related to Mensa. And I think we should use that. Another thing is, we should use Facebook, of course. This is the page of Mensa Hungary on Facebook, and I think you can see that the graphic designing is wonderful. Well, I'm not going to praise the content because that's my work, but so I really like his design. And if we don't yet have something, then let's make it, let's create it. This is the website of Mensa Hungary, and I think this is also great. I'm sure you've heard what Steve Jobs said about design. A good design is a product you want to lick. But I think this page is kind of yummy, so I would like to lick it. But I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone's feelings, but the page of Mensa International is not so yummy. And as far as I know, not
I have to laugh, Esther, because I have heard so many similar comments, but the people who are behind this design are very defensive.
But they should be. They should defend themselves. And it's not only about nice pictures and nice graphics, but also about functionality. Like, if people do not use it, then why do we have it? And what I also wanted to say that the guy who is behind the graphic design of Mensa Hungary's website does everything for free. And he also designs name cards and all our materials, also the journal. He's put a tremendous amount of work into it, and he's been doing it for more than 10 years. And he's an outstanding volunteer, and I think we could find people like that on an international level. You have a question?
I just wanted to mention that there is a way, if you want to change the design, we are organizing contests for web design. So, competition. Somebody could propose new design, and also you put that, after that you put all the designs on the website, and you allow members to vote.
Yeah.
So this is one of the options. So it is for free, it is a game, and everybody is involved, whoever wants to be. Just an idea.
Yeah, this is a good idea, actually. I'm not in charge of any of these websites, I'm just proposing things. And what I was trying to say that we should find people who are willing to volunteer and create wonderful sites like Mensa Hungary's website. And the way to do that is a database. So there are different tasks, and we have people, and we should put them together, we should assign tasks to people. So I think that Mensa should put an emphasis on discovering the potentials and the skills of each member and the ways they could volunteer and they could contribute to Mensa. Actually, it's funny because in Hungary, the board wanted to appoint someone to do this mapping of capacities, and they could not find a volunteer for that. So we have to take a step back and start searching for that volunteer. And another thing is to share, because contrary to what Willem Bolens said yesterday about the flattening out of Mensa, I think it's still basically a top-down thing. There's Mensa International on top, then we have the individual national Mensas and their chairman, and there's everybody else. And I think the chairmen have a very important role to play here, because they're the ones who are in contact with the media, but also with the active members. And the media can communicate what we want to tell to non-members, so to the outside world. And active members can tell inactive members and their friends and family and people who can be potential Mensans. So we have to use all the communication channels I mentioned before to put information through to these groups. And this is an exact representation of how the International Journal is published in Mensa Hungary's journal, in this size, actually. So you're like, wow, how am I supposed to read that? And since nobody was reading it, our board decided to take it out of the print edition and only publish it online, which means that even less people will read it because they have to click on an additional file and open it. And another issue, at least in Hungary, it is an issue that which language is it? It's English, it's a foreign language. People just don't bother. And so maybe I'm not proposing that the IG should be translated into many languages, but I, as a foreign relations appointee, I translate the most interesting articles and put them into the Hungarian journal so that people read them and be informed. For example, the LEAP program was published in the International Journal, and we put it onto the information list, we put it on Facebook, we put it on our website, everywhere basically, and I was the only candidate from Hungary. So I think we should really make an effort to make people more involved and more informed about the possibilities Mensa has to offer.
Maybe you mistranslated to be the only one.
Maybe I just did that. But you know, you have to speak English anyway to enter into LEAP, so...
There was
people
only
just-
one candidate from the Netherlands.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
Serbia.
So basically from every country
Because
there
you
was...
had to be also board approved.
Yeah, but this year the board could approve more than one person.
Yeah.
So there was no limitation.
Always up to the members.
I think after you go back to Hungary, if you write up or post pictures that you took, while you were here at the AG on your Facebook, the Hungary Facebook page and the Mensa page, or in your journals and everything, and then it gets out there. So next year there'll be hopefully more applicants.
Yeah, hopefully. But the problem is that Hungarian Mensa members just do not travel to international gatherings, and this partly has to do with lack of confidence in their language knowledge. Like they can express themselves in English. I know, because when an international member comes, then all kinds of people are chatting with them. So it's possible, but Hungarians just do not think they are able to do that, and that's why they do not go even to a Serbian gathering or in Austria, or they just do not go abroad for Mensa. And I'm really working on changing that attitude. For example, I will post everything on Facebook and journal and everywhere I can. So that was basically it. And I put nothing on this slide because I wanted you to name a few things that you think I wanted to say, or what you can take with you from this presentation. Anyone have any idea? Alyssa?
I just wanted to say on your last point about putting all the information about LEAP in your journal, on Facebook and so forth, it's still a new program, and you are our best advertisement. When you go back home, write an article for your bulletin, and each one of the other participants writes an article, and then one of the people on the committee will write an article for the International Journal. So all of you are all advertising this program, and even the people who are participating last year and the year before. So as we go through, years 4 and 5, there should be an even more interest out there, and using all the venues, the Facebook,
And more offspring.
whatever. In fact, we probably should have somebody tweeting this right now. We're video recording it, which is great, because that will be something that we'll store. We will store on some website somewhere so that other people can see it. But you people are really the best advertisements to go back when you go back home.
Yes, I wanted to say that one of your ideas that you mentioned, that one of the rewards for the volunteers would be to support their attendance to an international meeting. That would be really a good idea, because it's not only the money who counts, but also the initiative to go there. And if you encourage them by telling them, okay, Mensa Hungary will cover part of your cost, will do the registration, everything, that will make them go and then make friends, and then it goes more and more public, and that's very good. And I also have to say that the fact that the events like this one and the one in Bali are now put on Facebook attracted already more attention between Mensans in Serbia than everything before. So Facebook is doing its job.
Yeah, it does. Actually, our chairman didn't used to be on Facebook because he wanted to protect his privacy. And because he departed from himself, he thought that all Mensans are not on Facebook. And we put on a poll on our website. It turns out that 60% of Hungarian Mensans uses Facebook every day. So clearly it works, and Facebook is a good channel to do all this. Okay, so anyone else has a comment?
I just noticed that, at least with group. There's more activity on Facebook than the official Yahoo group. Because Facebook's just so much more accessible to everyone. Whereas Yahoo, you have to have a Yahoo account, and you have to actually sift through all the different posts just to figure out which ones are relevant. Whereas Facebook, you have the initial post, and then a few comments, and then another initial post, and a few comments that are not related. The initial post is two completely separate topics, which for me makes getting the information simpler.
But I think what you said about Yahoo stands true for Facebook too, because there are lots of posts. For example, my Facebook, I'm not interested in, so I have to browse through it to find the thing that I'm interested in.
But for me, I don't have to go through every post that's in the forum just to find the ones connected to the topics I'm interested in. And go to the initial post, which will have topics, and then I can follow that one post, that one topic, right?
Eszter? Jörg?
Yes, about Facebook. And I'll probably want to ask the same question to the communities later. The majority of Mensas in most countries do not really participate actively.
On Facebook or?
At all. But they still get some value from being members and by paying the membership fee and all. I would like your view on how can we maintain a value for members, give them an incentive to keep paying their membership due if they can keep associating with Mensa through social networks. That doesn't really have to cost very much, if you know what I mean.
I don't really know.
Suppose it's possible for a member to be a part of Facebook groups that are more or less officially
I
Mensa.
see. So they don't have to pay the fee to be part of
To
the
feel
Facebook.
like Mensas
I see.
in the future. How do we keep them within the organization?
Well, we have different things on Facebook. We have a Facebook page which is public and everybody can see it, and we have a Facebook group which is closed and only members of good standing can be there and regularly check their membership. And if they lapse, then we take them off the Facebook group. So if they want to stay part of it, they have to pay their membership fees. But actually, as I've said before, Hungarians are very material people. The financial incentives are important for them. And that's why we are, I haven't talked about this before, but we have incentives to keep people in Mensa, like financially. We are negotiating a deal with mobile phone companies to make a group out of Mensans, and within the group, calls will be free, and there will be a discount rate for outside calls. And we think that this alone would be worth the membership fee for people to pay. So this is a way to keep members paying, if that's our only goal.
Just to disappoint you, we've tried this before with Mensa, Serbia, and the telephone company, but there were only 5 volunteers, active people who signed up for these group phones, and then the whole idea failed. Unfortunately, members were not that much interested because they not phone to each other unless those who are already within the group of active people.
Yeah.
That's
But actually, there will be a discount even for calls outside the group.
You
So,
want- okay.
yeah, so once you're in a group, you will get a discount anyway. And if you phone within a group, then it's okay. And you can also bring in family members, not just Mensa members. Yeah.
Well, I have 2 comments. The first one is regarding, I don't know if I followed your question, Bjorn, but I read that Denmark has developed some sort of API so that you can actually use your Mensa chapter database to automatically switch on and off a member for the Facebook group. Norway, right. Because otherwise you need your membership officer to review the list and remove manually those who have not paid and add those who have paid. And on the other hand, at least in Mexico, there are some funny. We have some IT members who don't want to join Facebook ever for privacy issues, which is funny because they are IT. I mean, anyway, this in the past was, we didn't want to go into Facebook completely, so we wouldn't lose these members who didn't want to join Facebook. So we kept Yahoo Group's emailing list. But we actually don't like that. And the fact that we don't like that is something that we also have in Facebook. When you insert a message, they all get mixed up, so to follow up a conversation gets kind of messy, and the same thing happens with Facebook. So in the past we had a PHP VB free forum, but right now what we are testing is Facebook-like community, which is free. It's UCLA with double O, and you can set it up so it's supported, or it can know from your website and your database who are members and who are not. It gives you an opportunity to publish a blog within that. So it's a small Facebook within your membership database, so there is no one complaining about privacy issues. It allows you to have forum-like spaces, so you can write only about certain topics, and it also has picture capacities, and everyone can say can rate the picture. This is great, this is not. Can comment on it. It's pretty much Facebook-like. It's actually a little better than Facebook. The problem with that is that if you have two spaces, as I think you mentioned, you have also forums, is that the regular Facebook user doesn't think on Mensa. He enters Facebook and, oh yes, there is Mensa, which is something that you had in the email account. You could forget about Mensa, but you had a nagging email every now and then remembering you are a Mensa. When you have a group that is not Facebook, or whatever it is, that is not nagging you constantly so you can remember you are a Mensa, it is a little bit harder to pull people to actually consider this new tool or different tool to use it. But if you get past through that, you could also have a different nice tool you could use besides that one.
Yeah, that's what I was saying at the beginning, that Facebook and emails too are part of our lives. This new platform is not yet part of our lives, but it could be in the future.
Correct.
So, absolutely. Yes?
I didn't hear you mention it, and maybe you might have and I missed it. About how many members does Mensa Hungary have?
We have 800 members.
800. Okay, that's
We've had almost 1,000 once. We missed it by 2 or 3 members, I guess. It was after a television show. It was, I think it ran in the US too. It was about an IQ test on TV, and you could take it at home, and it told you at the end what your IQ was. We had this a few times, and our membership just like soared.
That was a while ago. Is that the one that they did about almost 10 years ago?
Yeah, in Hungary it was in 2004 and 2005. Yeah, that's when we had almost 1,000 members, and it has been increasing, sometimes increasing a bit.
How many are active?
Well, it depends on what you call active. We have the annual gathering with about 200 people participating. We have a weekly gathering in Budapest, and I think there are about 100 people who are regulars there. At one time there are like 30 people, but yeah, we have this regular community in Budapest.
Those are high rates.
I don't know, I can compare it with other countries, but yeah, here.
Yes, since this is about volunteers and volunteering, to what extent do you believe it's important for volunteers to meet physically in order to achieve anything? Because in the international organization, one of the problems is that volunteers come from many different countries, obviously, and then it gets kind of difficult, not to mention expensive, to have them meet. To what extent do you, in your experience, believe it's important to meet?
Well, it really depends on the project. a few weeks ago actually, we had a project to make up a tent at a rock music festival with logical games and IQ test-like things. It was sponsored by a Hungarian bank, and I think it was a great opportunity. And so we had a brainstorming session about what kind of games we should use in that tent. And we tried to do it online, but it worked better in person. So I think brainstorming type activities are better when we are actually there. We can catch each other's second thoughts, and so for this kind of project, it's better to brainstorm. But when it comes to the XCOM, I think the XCOM is getting by with just mailing. I don't know if you use talk on Skype or things like that.
We have a monthly teleconference and 2 physical meetings per year.
Okay. Well, I think in Hungary the problem is that people who do not live in Budapest, they are not active at all. So they are not interested in going to gatherings or to volunteer or anything. So basically we have active volunteers in Budapest, and we make those people go to the country, to the countryside, to another city, and to host a testing or to organize something. And about once or twice a year, there's a local group which organizes a gathering in another city outside Budapest. And we always have our annual gathering outside Budapest. But it's not the local group which is organizing it, but it's the same people who are from Budapest who are organizing their gathering somewhere else.
I was going to say about the problem of meeting face-to-face, it's very expensive to bring our international board of directors together, and that's why we only do it once a year. That's the only FaceTime we really get with one another. And but I'm a great believer in FaceTime, even if it is a small amount. I look forward to those kinds of things. But I wanted to describe an event where we didn't have any FaceTime. In 2006, we had the World Gathering in Orlando, in Florida, and I chaired that gathering. But my committee was made up of people all over the U.S., and we did not meet each other face-to-face until that gathering. But each person had their own chores. You know, there was a volunteer manager, and there was a hospitality manager, but we would talk once a month. We would have a conference call by phone. Now, if we didn't have Skype at that point, but we probably might have Skyped if it was available then. But we didn't meet face-to-face until the day before that gathering started. So it does depend on the project. If it's a project like putting on a large event and you have to draw on the talents and skills of people, and they aren't necessarily living in the same area, it can be done. But as far as like our international board of directors, we're not only there to conduct business for the good of the society, we're also there to brainstorm, and that's where the FaceTime comes in. You can even if you Skype something like that, you can't read people's body language. There's so much. There are so many other things going on besides the tone of your voice or your words. There's just so many other things going on, and I'm just a great believer in FaceTime, and I think that we need to continue to do that, even if it is expensive. We have to do that at least once a year, and do things like Leap so that we can see other faces, not just American faces, see other faces too.
You're right, you're totally right. And I must tell you that in Hungary, one of the greatest attractions of being chairman is the possibility to travel to IBDs. So it's great value for us too. Oh, I think that's, yes.
I know this really isn't about, excuse me, Facebook. I mean, just using Facebook as an analogy, but I have a problem with Facebook and Mensa in that I get friend requests from non-Mensans or former Mensans that haven't paid their dues in years, lapsed Mensans, but they portray themselves as Mensans. It comes in and it'll have 42 friends in common, and they're all Mensans, and they're people that I recognize, often Alyssa. And so when I first started getting these, I assumed that they were Mensans. So then, but the first thing I would do is say, oh, what are they, who is this person? Do I remember them? Do I know them? So I would go to the American Mensa. We have a member directory that's updated every day, so I know it's good. And I put the person in, and sometimes they're there, and I know who they are, and I see what group they're in, and that's great. And then other times, they're not there. And more, I've had dozens of these. I would say even 50 in the last year, where it's either someone that's never been a Mensa or someone that's a lapsed Mensa. And I'll challenge them. I'll come back. I have a friend request. I'll message them. I'll ask them about their actual association with Mensa. And they'll tell me, I was a Mensa a few years ago and I haven't paid my dues, but I still like Mensa. I'm going to join again someday. Or my wife's a Mensa, so I'm not paying the dues because it doesn't make any difference because I don't pay the dues. I can just do everything anyway because my wife pays the dues. And things like that. But then there's others that don't respond, and I just know that they're not Mensas. But they friend every Mensa thing, and they like every Mensa thing, and they have nothing to do with Mensa. So I don't know if that bothers any of you, but it bothers me. And if I get those, I don't, if you're not an actual dues-paying Mensa member, then you can't be my friend. Sorry.
Well, I understand that people who don't actually know you, friend request you, that bothers you. That's okay. But the fact that even though they are not Mensa members, they still like Mensa, they want to be related to Mensa, I think that's a good thing. That means that Mensa has a value for them. We should make them pay their dues, and then it will be even better. But
Well, some of these are non-Mensans, maybe they wouldn't even qualify for Mensa. But
If they would pay, that would be nice.
oh yeah, I don't think we're
Support group.
I don't think the Mensa Auxiliary for those in the 96%.
With your Facebook group and Facebook page, you've got exactly the same side we have our group, which is closing. And then you've got the fan page, which is for non-Mensans who want to follow Mensans, see what green testing dates are. And that works very well because the closed group is moderated, so it's only paid up members that belong to that. And everyone else who has an interest can like the fan page. And it's up to each individual if they want to accept friend requests or not.
I think that also might help demystify some of the things, because some people have, well, rather all ideas about Mensa, of course, that we're secretly taking over the room, which we're not.
Officially.
At least not on the cameras, not on the cameras, but
I am not pointing at you.
Yeah.
You can talk.
you're recording the sound.
Yes.
You have to keep it a secret.
She's not pointing at you with that.
No, but
Yeah.
I have a question, actually, probably more for Eszter, about the program. You've mentioned several times that these people, the participants, have to produce 3 reports. At least. Where do those reports go, and are they available to us memorials?
Yes, they are available. Actually, the best place to find a compilation of those reports is as the chair of the last 3 league committees. I had to report to the IBD how it went because they spent money on this program. So you can go to the minutes of the last 2 IBD meetings, and you can see my report. And I think my report for 2011 was about 37 pages. And what I did is each one of these, the current participants sent me their report, and then I required reports from the previous year. And I just compiled them all together and made some observations on them. So it'd be probably easier for you to read my report that includes everybody. And then this year, I'll do the same thing. I'm still asking for reports from the people who participated in 2010. I still have their names, and I still have their emails. And I want to know what they're doing now. For instance, the 3 Americans who participated in 2010, one of those people is Beth Ann. Beth Ann is now our national membership officer. So our investment financially and so forth, our investment in her has paid off because she's become a national membership officer. Another person was Lori Norris, who is the RBC up in the Northeast. And while she doesn't hold a national position now, she is getting involved. She's running for election next year. And the 3rd American is still doing his thing in North Dakota. He's from a very sparsely settled state, and he is has been doing supervised tests there and continues to do that. The thing we don't want to see happen is once we make the, and I'm speaking as a Mensa international person, once we make the investment and try to make this happen, we don't want to see those people fade away. We want them to continue to contribute. And actually, I should say too that our 2012 LEAP committee is made up of people from past programs. So we're trying to continue to provide some continuity there, as well as requiring.
I think that those reports can be of some value to the rest of us, especially those in some leadership positions. That we can at least see what, having seen some of these presentations, what value did the person get from it? And I think there's at least a couple of them, this one and the one I attended earlier today, that it would be interesting to see if they got, where they went after this meeting.
That's exactly my point. You set people on a path and you help them get pick up some skills or do some bonding or whatever, those kinds of things. Then you want to see if your investment paid off. And I think, and I'm too close to the program to really say this, but I think it's paid off tremendously. In more ways than just Mensa leadership. It's also paid off in friendships that have been formed, ideas that have been acted upon, and other ideas that are churning around right now that we are going to act on in the next few years. So I think it's already paid for itself. But the best place for you to see the reactions of people and so forth would be in a combined report, both for 2010 and 2011.